Welcome to Sports Geek Throwback. Here's your host, the sports geek himself, Sean Callanan.
G'day, I'm Sean Callanan from Sports Geek and welcome to Sports Geek Throwback, where I pick out the best bits from the Sports Geek podcast archive. For this week's Sports Geek Throwback, I go back to episode 174 with Darren Birch, published in November 2017. Darren was at the AFL at the time of this episode recording. He is now CEO of DigiLearning Australia. Does your digital marketing or sponsorship team needs some assistance? We apply the digital to dollars process to help sports teams build revenue. I'd love to work with you. Please get in touch. In this throwback episode, Darren and I discuss growth and attracting new fans. Remember, you can listen to the full episode at sportsgeekhq.com/174. Enjoy.
I mean, yeah, you talk there about, different products and, the AFLW being introduced opens up the new audiences, but also different content products that fit for those different markets. And it's off the traditional path and, AFL and footy in general. And we're in a mad footy town here in Melbourne that there's a lot of focus on the product on the field and getting that right. And there's a lot of focus there. But like you said, you've got to be 10, 15 years out looking at what are we producing, and a lot of that's also happening out of this market. This is a very mature market. They get footy, but AFL's new frontier is still what's happening in New South Wales and what's happening in Queensland. So you've got to have that focus. You've got to pull yourself out of the back page of the paper and the day-to-day issues that swamp footy, and keep an eye on that long-term view with these kind of plans.
Yeah, well, that's really, if you look at the title, growth, digital and audience. If we want to grow, we have to be relevant to women. We have to be relevant to 5 to 12-year-olds. And the other area that we need to be relevant is geographically, which is the northern markets, which happen to be the biggest population and the biggest television audiences and the biggest commercial audiences. And at the moment, we are still in some of those areas and some of those regions in those northern markets, we're not in the consideration set as a sport that people will either consider watching, following or playing. So we've got a lot of work to do there. We think that focusing our efforts in the 5 to 12-year-olds and particularly within curriculum is a big opportunity for us. You can't rely in our traditional markets. We rely upon mums and dads and advocates of the game to promote the game.
Yeah, I call it in Melbourne. It's guilt level marketing.
Yeah,
you meet another fan and they'll go, "Hang on, you're not a member yet."
Yeah, and I think the biggest pockets of our traditional markets that lack growth in football is where there are not white guys.
Yep.
So we actually have to be cognizant that our population is changing and that we have a broader ethnic community. And if you're an immigrant to Australia and you were never brought up on watching AFL football, but you grew up playing soccer or rugby union or another sport, what relevance does AFL football have to you and to your children? Because that's just not in their thinking.
Yep.
And we have to recognise that. And if we're going to be relevant to those kids, we can't rely upon their parents. This is what we've traditionally done to advocate for the game. People say to me, if we sort of diverge into esports, people say to me, "Oh, I don't get this. It's crazy." It's like, how can anyone watch
gamers
and how does anyone watch digital, people on screen? I said, well, it's no different to someone from, it's no different to someone from China coming and watching AFL game of football at the MCG.
Yep.
It has about the same relevance as me watching League of Legends.
Yep.
It's no different. So we got a lot of work to do in that area, but I think we have the tools and the strategy to make really strong inroads.
Yeah, I think, there was a point when I had Nigel Smart from the Crows on. They were talking, he was talking about the audience extension piece that diving into esports happens. And then, you've got other pieces like the foray into China and having games in China, both works in China to introduce the market here, but it also introduces it to the Asian market here in Australia to make them interested in football, potentially talking to their relatives about what this game is, as well as doing things like multicultural round where you've got multiple broadcasters who are in different languages, that kind of thing to bring them into the fold to introduce them to footy.
If you like this Sports Geek Throwback episode, please check out the full episode at sportsgeekhq.com. Please share Sports Geek with your sports business colleagues. We appreciate you sharing. We love working with podcast listeners. Please get in touch so we can help your team. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. All Sports Geek episodes are available at sportsgeekhq.com and all podcast platforms.